Hello and welcome to Dice Night. My name is Casey Cole and I am your host. This is where we talk tabletop RPGs, anything in between, and helps with your DMing needs. Our guest tonight is professional game master and content producer at Questline, Kevin Dicecream Sandwich Parr. Hi, Kevin, or Dicecream. What do I call you? Do I call it where we're going?
You can call me anything you like, sir. You can call me Kevin. You can call me Dicecream KP. I don't think I've heard Kevin Dicecream Sandwich Parr, Kevin Dicecream Parr. That's cool too. I've never heard that one yet.
I always think of it like superheroes. Like, is he? I'm Peter Spider-Man Parker. Or they say I'm Spider-Man Peter Parker? Right? You kind of have to go. It's your call sign. No, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I've been following you for a while now, actually, because years ago when we started Underpowered, our main podcast, we had Devin Chulik on from Start Playing Games. Yeah. And I was looking through that because I was kind of getting into, because we talk everything games on this channel. And I saw your channel and I started following you on Instagram, and I was hooked ever since because your content's hilarious.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
But during COVID. Yeah. It's been.
Oh, wow. Back then.
Yeah. That's when we got him on. It was right at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
But you seem like to have, now you're doing this full time. I've kind of seen how your career arc has changed because you used to do social media. So how did you get into this? Let's talk about you and not about me so much.
Good Lord. I ask myself that same question every day. I'm like, how did I get myself into this? Yeah, it kind of happened pretty organically. Like my background is in acting and performing. I started acting when I was like 16 in high school. And then I did it pretty steadily till 21. Wasn't a lead in any movies or TV or anything, I was just doing the struggling actor thing, doing a lot of auditions, getting into a lot of big rooms, and had a couple cool opportunities. But it didn't really like lead anywhere. And then I kind of took a break, went traveling for a minute. And then I was like 21. When I got back, I was like, I'm going to try to find another vocation that's creative. I was like, at that point, I'm like, I'm going to be, the next Brad Pitt, and I was like, nah, I don't know if that's realistic.
You're far better looking, so that's
thanks.
That's like
you just made my day.
Welcome.
Yeah, so I started getting into new media. I was savvy with social media like anybody else at that time. But yeah, the bar that I was working at the time, I took over their socials and I started making content for them, kind of like TikTok content before TikTok content. Like, it was very like sketch sort of videos that I'd do with like their events or parties that were going on. We made them for like Facebook and Instagram at the time, and they did pretty well. And then I kind of went down that path. I started working on social media content for other people, for bars, restaurants, clients, and stuff like that. I didn't get into D&D specifically though.
No, this was you beforehand, right? The media manager, right? And all your content.
Oh my God, that's my old my old page that I have not posted on in like over a year.
I mean, you've been busy with the main thing. I have a lot of I'm gonna have a lot of files come up tonight.
Oh wow, okay. But so that gave me a good background in just like digital marketing, learning the business side of things, making content for someone else's audience. So I was doing that for a couple of years until I started getting into D&D. My friend Jordy Rose, who was my first DM, one of my best friends, he's dubbed the co-creator, co-producer of Dicecream Sandwich because he helped me build our first stream and run some of our stories on our Twitch channel when we first got started. But yeah, he introduced me to D&D. I think this was like around, God, what do I say? Like 2017, maybe, like around then. And so I started playing with him and got into a home game and just had the most amazing time. Always wanted to play it. And then finally he showed me the ropes, and I was playing in other people's games for a while. And then it wasn't until like near the end of 2018, 2019 that me and him connected again. Like, hey, do you want to like do another home game, but just like try to stream it? Like we since then gone to Critical Role and all that. And we were like, yeah, sure. Let's just give it a shot for fun. So he ran a Curse of Strahd campaign. And we streamed it. We figured out what Twitch was like, and we were doing it for almost a year, and just had the best time at this very table behind me with a group of really good friends. And that led right into around when the pandemic happened. Literally, when they were like, "Stay in your homes, you can't go anywhere," is when we did our finale of Curse of Strahd.
Right. Because I noticed
And
on your podcast, on your YouTube page, you have your Cursed of Strahd campaign 1,
yeah,
and then you have your other streams there too. If people ever want to go back and see it, which are great.
yeah,
Your
they're
Twitch
all there
channel is
on
great.
YouTube. Yeah, they're all backed up on YouTube. And if you want to see the humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
And then we tried to do a campaign 2. And by that time, I'd created my Instagram and started making
Right.
content, gaining a little bit of a following. But I was kind of always the front face of the content. And then TikTok started gaining traction. I hopped in that pretty early with D&D content, but nobody else really wanted to contribute to it. Like sometimes we'd be like, hey, you guys can make content too. And no one really wanted to. So it was just me in front of the camera all the time, making skits, doing stuff. And then that started to really take off. And then our second campaign kind of faltered. Like the group that we had, they weren't very adaptable to an online streaming concept. They're much more like in-game players, and it wasn't really for them.
Yeah.
So
The
by that
greatest
point,
foe of D&D, right? Scheduling
yeah,
and life. Yeah. Right.
yeah, exactly. So around then, the pandemic was going strong, and I think by then I had like, oh man, I want to say maybe like 15,000 on TikTok around then. Then I started making friends with other creators online. That's when I first met Quincy's Tavern and a lot of other awesome people. And then I was like, well, let's just start doing games together online because we're all here. We're gaining these audiences. I'm sure people want to see us play.
Right.
And oh boy, was I right, because we did a series of one shots. It was like 3 or 4 one shots with different groups of creators that led to like an Avengers finale where they all
the Beyond
fought.
series that you had too, right?
So yeah, it was the start of that. So these were a series of one shots that I just got all the TikTok D&D creators that I knew to be a part of it, and we had so many people come and watch us live, the most amount of viewers we had ever had anything, and we're like, oh wow, maybe there's something here. Mm-hmm. So after that little series ended, I started my first time DMing a homebrewed campaign, and this was with Game Raider Girl, Ben Does D&D, Hugh Johns, and a Clerical Error staff. And then we started Beyond the Realms, which was my first sort of streamed campaign where I was a DM. And then we just that kind of led into everything, really. Like the TikTok was just starting to blow up. Instagram was blowing up, developing this awesome community. Then getting into 2021, I went on my Instagram and TikTok and pitched to Gen Con if they would
right. I was gonna bring that up. That was the most you went for the big, like the 60-yard, the Hail Mary. You're like, hey, Gen Con, we need these TikTok creators in here where there's a big group of us. And I remember like the following video a couple days later, because the response was so overwhelming, Gen Con got you to come and perform there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a situation where they were just coming out of the pandemic. It was the first big event out of the pandemic. So a lot of big people that would usually come didn't. They were still, afraid of what was going on, and most people didn't feel safe leaving their homes. So they needed a lot of performers to come. And so they got back to me because, I made this video being like, hey, I'm Dicecream Sandwich. I run these games with all these other creators. We'd love to come and do shows. And I thought it would be like this huge process. And then my followers tagged in the comments and they replied within like 5 minutes. And they were just like, what do you want to do? Nice. And I was like, okay, well, and I pitched them 3 games with 3 different groups of creators, all with various following, some on the bigger side, some like not as huge, but still like really engaging content. And I thought they'd pick one, and they were like, cool, we'll take all 3. We'll see you in August. And I went, oh my God. So then I ran 3 different games during that weekend. And it was like going to an event that had like over 80,000 people right out of the pandemic. The first time going to not only an event after the pandemic, but like doing any kind of show. And it was crazy. And I got to meet so many cool creators, so many cool friends. And then Gen Con was just retweeting all of our promo, which opened myself up to the industry, because Gen Con is like the TTRPG industry event. So a lot of people that weren't aware of D&D TikTok or the community there, they were all getting an introduction, not only to myself, but to all these other creators who were making this fabulous works. And then things just started going off from there. That's when I got some of my first big promotions and sponsorships. I got invited D&D in a castle, and then just like,
right. I was actually just pulling that up. The Like a Bard Out of Hell, right?
Yeah, that was a one shot we did to promote it. And ever since that first Gen Con show, it's just been nonstop with just like sponsorships, getting invited to events. I've felt so fortunate, so lucky to still trying to wrestle with imposter syndrome and being like, why do I get these opportunities? This is insane. To this year, fast forward a couple years, 2023 has been the busiest year of my creative career with events, being invited to stuff, just trying to catch up with it all. So, and now I'm working, with a professional studio.
The Questline, right?
Questline, that's right. Now dubbed Quest Coast Studios. That make
cool.
TTRPG content and just awesome fantasy content. They have like costume department, makeup, cameras, so many talented people that work there. Now I'm a producer with them, so I help them with their content, and we plan cool projects together, and they allow me to DM my own games with their awesome creatives, and we get to invite cool people to be a part of them. And yeah, it's just wild.
Well, and you just got to do the One Ring one shot, right? For
correct. Yeah, I got to
at
perform.
Comic-Con?
Yeah, I got to perform at Comic-Con literally this past weekend. I got back on Sunday. First time being invited to be a creator there, which is just like, talk about lifelong dream goals. And it was great. We did the One Ring system from Free League. So we did an all Hobbits one shot using their game. And that had Arcane Anthems, Harley Kane, Don Marshall, Lauren Does Cosplay, Gabe Hicks, Chelsea Bites, and we had a special guest appear as Balin the Dwarf. You guys may know Jason Charles Miller, who's an amazing creator and created Critical Role's first theme song, and is an amazing musician and an amazing performer and creator in his own right. And yeah, I was fortunate enough just to continue to meet all these amazing creatives and actors and performers and people that I've been following myself for years since getting into D&D content. And now I can call them my peers, which is just wild. So yeah,
it's awesome. But it's been kind of cool because it was just, you were making great content, and then to see people pick up on it from like as a fan perspective, for me, it's like, oh wow, look at this guy just going for it. Because I think the big turn is it was an actor that found the place where he could truly be the actor too, right? Like you get to do everything. As you get to act, you get to produce, you get to control the story. It's got to be like you said, just an awesome dream come true these last few years, especially during COVID when everyone's so scared. You found a light, which I think is the most interesting part of the story, right? Like that was when you think of COVID, you're gonna think like, "Whoa, this actually got my career off," right? Like you
pretty much.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a blessing for a lot of creators. Like, there's so many people now that are household names that maybe would have never taken that leap had they not had that year off to try something new and focus on it for a while. Yeah, like I said, I had a background in acting. It wasn't really going the way I'd hoped. You try to like, maybe I'll try to write a short film. It doesn't work out. Maybe I'll write like, I don't know, a play. It doesn't work out. But for some reason, this new medium that's kind of being birthed before our eyes is having a viable competition with regular media, with movies, TV, doing these sort of actual plays for D&D and other systems. Well, has just been another way to write and create and perform, and it's just been wonderful.
And with the SAG-AFTRA stuff coming too right now, like there's gonna be a stop in media like in the next few months. It's gonna be like the supply chain with COVID, right? And it's gonna be our media next. And you got these creators online. I'll be curious to see how many big name actors too might make the move to just doing online stuff or independent stuff, because that's right. This is the studio. Who knows? But I'm happy to see the renaissance or the resonance of this. And like, did you have improv background too?
Not so much improv. Like I never took like improv classes, but I did a lot of training when I was in my acting days, so I've got a lot of experience in that field. Improv comedy is its own lane altogether, and I've even been considering like getting back into it a little bit, just to help strengthen my acting skills and performing skills, especially with doing these actual plays like Yes and all that. Like it helps. That's why when you see improv comics and improv actors get into the space, they just excel so well because the medium supports it. And like playing D&D, as anyone out there knows, it can be ridiculous at times, and you just want to make it the most hilarious, fun experience you can, whether you're DMing for your players or the players just setting a tone for the rest of the table. But I never had formal training in improv acting, but acting in general is just about listening, responding, keeping true to all those instincts internally. So it's definitely helped with everything that I've done so far.
Well, you're kind of too, you've been honest in a lot of your videos. Like, Do you feel you're with your preparation? I'm sure you write stuff, but is it a lot of shooting from the hip too with your actors? Do you feel like when you're DMing?
Yeah, I mean, I prep, but also I prep enough to where when we go to the game, sometimes I can just like put it away, and the story just kind of takes over from there. Like when I'm doing a campaign, I always have a blueprint. Like I kind of organizing in chapters. Like the first part
Sure.
will be about this, second part, third part, fourth part. Sometimes you write it fairly well halfway, and you're like, I'm not sure this is going to end. But then as the story takes place, the players, contribute their stories, uh, fill their back, like if they fill their storylines and backstories, and
Yeah.
it contributes to the overall narrative. So then you kind of start to take things in a different direction than you thought because of their performances and how their characters are developing. So I always like leave a lot of room for things to change as they go, but I usually always have like a good blueprint of like where it's going, and then adjust on the fly.
See, I always go to this because someone sent this to me with the alignment for
Oh
DM classes.
yeah.
And I feel like, or would you be in the bard? Or where do you think you're a mix of here as the DM?
Oh man, rule of cool.
Rule cool is the greatest rule, right? Everyone has to follow that.
Clever traps. I would say my Jordy is definitely a rogue DM. Challenging obstacles, clever traps, good at grit, horror. But yeah, like a little mix of everything. Like I obviously do like my NPCs, voices. Like to do jokes. I definitely don't plan at all. I like lore though, and I'm awful at puzzles.
Every D&D player is.
Yeah. Try to do a lot of world building. Make maps when it's appropriate. I improv a lot. I don't improv everything, but yeah, you kind of take a little bit of all this. Definitely tie into the backstory. Right? Yeah. You kind of pick and choose what kind of DM you want to be and how it all fits together. But I am much more like have a blueprint, have a plan, but make room for it to change and to allow ideas to come, sometimes even from the players, to have ideas come into your story that maybe you didn't think of at first, but is just ultimately going to make it better. Yeah. Because for me, and I've always said this in other interviews and when talking on the genre to other people, I see D&D TTRPGs as a player first experience. Right. Like if you're at a table and the DM is there to just, I don't know how you want to describe it, just to toot their own horn and to just bulldoze the story that they want and to show everyone, look how good I am.
The train conductor? You're talking about the railroading?
Maybe a little railroady, but just, the players have to inform the story. And if they're not having a good time, why are we here? Like the DM can have a great time all they want. They can do it. It's literally they're God. Like they can make the story whatever they want, however they want. They could fudge rolls. They could say this doesn't work, that doesn't work. But if you're the only one having fun at the table and your players are like, well, this kind of sucks, what is the point? Like, why are you doing this then? So for me, I'm always trying to build a story or an experience or building a world that the players are going to enjoy, to include arcs and stories that makes them feel great about their characters, that makes them feel like, the work that they put into building their backstories means something, and they get those big moments and they get those catharsis within their backstories, and it makes all the time they put into it mean something.
Yeah, they don't care about your world. Like your world's cool, but they care about their story, right? That's why everyone plays. Like it's their background, and some people have less, some people have more. Sometimes some it's simple, but like that's the thing of it, right? What makes a good story is the character's tale, right? Yeah. Where like you don't read a book because like Hogwarts is cool. Hogwarts is cool, but you're there to hear the story of Harry Potter, right? Like you're invested in him. Or the Fellowship, right? You can do that with any book, but like with the start playing games too. Are you still running games for people like that, or no? Because of
when they first got going, I helped them a bit. I think we did some promotion on our channels, and I ran a couple games when they first got started. But I literally just don't have time.
I was gonna say
I'm doing so much that my little poor dumb brain can handle. With this year already, like I was just talking about it on the flight back from San Diego. Like we're not even into. I think we're officially in the halfway point of the year. Yeah. January, I filmed my first studio game with Questline. It was a Dragonlance campaign. that had Luis Carrazzo, Michelle Bradley, Tank Tolman, Quincy's Tavern, Trevor Gemma, and Roz Young, who are part of Questline. And that was insane production just to get that going. That led into doing a D&D cruise, which I got to be a part of and DM for people there, which led into Convergence, which was Quincy's Tavern's own little, like, it was almost like a D&D TikTok con in itself that was held at Evermore Park. And I DM'd groups there. Then I had a little bit of downtime. Then I organized and produced my second actual play that's actually debuting in August, which you all will get to see the trailer during Gen Con weekend. We're so stoked.
Yeah, which is next weekend, right?
Exactly. It's coming up. That led into prepping for San Diego, which then now I just got back from to prep for Gen Con. And then I'm having meetings literally this week to start having talks of producing my third actual play with Questline that'll debut in Halloween time.
Oh, you going horror? You got it, right? Yeah. See, I'm too big of a wimp. I can't do scary. But good. Scary horror is harder, I think, to write too, because scary, like being scared, is in the eye of the beholder a little bit, right? Or you have to go in the Stephen King camp of like, or Spielberg in Jaws. I think Jaws is my favorite type of horror, where you don't see it. It's just
It's gonna be interesting doing a follow-up to Dragonlance, because that was my first studio game. That's also just like doing a studio game with that much production value is just every content creator's dream.
Right.
And that one was more doing like, I wanted that to be like my fantasy novel adaptation. And for the new one we're doing, the second one, it's a Pathfinder game.
Yeah, I saw that you're doing it with all D&D. That's the one at Gen Con, right?
So that's a game for Gen Con that we're doing, but the studio game that we shot is also Pathfinder, set in the world of Geb, the undead nation in Pathfinder. They just released an adventure path last fall called Bloodlords. So it's based in that realm. So that was more like Tim Burton, My Chemical Romance, What We Do in the Shadows, more on the comedy side with some levity of drama. And then the next game, the third one, which I can't announce what it is yet, but it is going to be more in the Eldritch horror, that kind of thing, more spooky and so that's gonna be really fun to do, like 3 very different games tonally.
I with the switch to Pathfinder, because you have the D&D, what have you found versus Pathfinder and D&D? Like, what are you liking more, or what?
It's crunchy.
It's all numbers.
I had to literally prep the most I've ever prepped for any live game before, because Pathfinder is very, very fun. Loved playing it, learning it. It's a lot. It's a lot of rules. It's a lot of the thing with the main difference between D&D and Pathfinder. D&D, the rules, mechanics, for anyone who doesn't play TTRPGs, is also crunchy. Obviously, there's lots of things to keep track of, but in the main scope of like how crunchy can it get, Pathfinder does take the cake. But one of the things that's good about that is D&D, a lot of interpretations to the rules, how spells works. Some of the wording is open to interpretation.
You're right.
And the majority of the community has dubbed like, this means this.
Right.
Because that's how most people play that mechanic or does that spell.
Yeah.
But when something's a bit open worded in the description, the DM can just judge however that is.
Yeah. This is how it is now.
Yeah. Pathfinder is literally like, the spell does this. Nothing else. If you try this, it will fail. If you do this, it succeeds in the description, in the writing. So in that instance, it makes playing it very simple once you get the hang of it, because I have had no arguments at a Pathfinder table. Anyone who corrects a rule or a call, they literally just look up the rules and be like, it says it right here, and literally explains like why that can't happen. You're like, oh, okay, never mind. And nobody argues because it literally says what it does. For verbatim.
Beautiful. I can only imagine.
Yeah. So it's been fun that way. But yeah, there are, death saves have a whole other mechanic tied to it.
Crits
stealth
too,
has
right?
like, pardon me?
Crit too, right? Because isn't it based on how much higher?
You can crit success, crit fail, but there's like, you can crit fail really badly and crit succeed really greatly.
Right.
But it was really, once I got the hang of it, it was really fun to play. And the character creation side of it is definitely the shining jewel of Pathfinder. Like, if you're somebody who loves making characters, Pathfinder might be the system for you, because it's pretty endless. Like I think D&D, as far as class and race combos go, there's like an allotted number, like I don't know, 40,
Right.
50. Don't quote me on that. I'm just speaking in generality. But
Yeah.
Pathfinder is probably like whatever its number is for D&D. Pathfinder is like double, if not maybe triple.
Right.
Just because the combos are just insane. And the way that they develop the skill checks and developing the paths that you can do, like for each class, there's like 6 different paths each class that you could take, just built on like the feats that you could to choose. Like if you want to be an alchemist, you could choose a bomber path. Okay, what kind of bomber do you want to be? Do you want to be an ice bomber, a flame bomber, a heal bomber, a necromantic bomber, a mutagist, and just like on and on and on and on. So it's very interesting that way. But yeah, it was a big challenge to learn that system and make a campaign for a studio game that felt like I wasn't second guessing myself by the time we got to camera. But it was a great challenge.
You have to do some like home games too. Like, hey,
yeah,
let's run
I
through
did.
some
I played. We were still because we loved it so much. We started our own home game of the Bloodlords Adventure Path.
Nice.
And I love the setting so much. I'm like, I want to make this my studio game.
With those pre-made games or pre-made storylines too, right? Because there's pieces to take for like quest lines too. Like we were doing Icewind Dale for a while, and I'm curious for you because you did the homebrew background with the Beyond the Wild. Like, do you feel like sometimes you're too on the line, like it's too hard? You have too much and you want to follow paths, and then your players want to do something completely different. Where in a homebrew, if they want to do something completely different, it's okay because it's the world's open more. Where if you're in Icewind Dale or if you're in wherever there's only so much your characters can do.
Yeah, well, I think it depends what kind of players you have and what kind of experience you're doing. Like home games obviously can go in a lot of different directions depending on who your players are. Stream games, like the players that I choose to play with are very much on the narrative cinematic focus.
Good.
So like they'll definitely go in a lot of directions, but they'll never pick a path just to be difficult. Like they can see like there's a narrative going forward, but they're like, oh, we're just gonna go way the F over here. That has nothing to do with the main story because we just want to see what's over there.
My character would do this. Yeah.
And sometimes that does happen, but for the homebrewed games that I made, like Beyond the Realms, it was still structured around like I would pick and choose from one shots I read or parts of campaigns that I read. Like, ooh, I like this section. I'm gonna insert this here and just change a little bit. So the narratives for each arc kind of had a bit of a game plan to it. But yeah, sometimes even within that, players go over here, players go over there. But I find that if you do your homework and you really know how that town works or that continent works, you have a good base of like, if they go all the way west, I know what is all the way west. If they go all the way east, I know where east is. If there's like the narrative is saying go north, but I've done enough of my homework that like I didn't just plan north. I know the whole continent. So if they go, but also within narrative storytelling, if there is like a plot point that you need your players to get, like for example, they need to get key from Greg. Greg is north. Okay, they're going east because they saw Cute Bunny and they want to know where its home is. Okay, well now Greg is John, and John will be in the bunny town, and he'll have the key. So you
you have the one thing where anywhere they go, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I feel like too something that early DMs do, or like I find myself is you make this big grandiose ideas where you really just want a couple ideas and they happen wherever else, and everybody thinks that's playing like, oh, wonder what happened if we did that. Hey guys, it would have been the same thing. You don't know, but it just would have been flavored this way, right? It's the playing with the people, that professional narrative. It's got to be nice for that too, because it's with like you talk about with character creation and Pathfinder. When people do like your Dragonlance campaign, do they say, "Hey, this is the character I'm thinking"? Is that a collaboration between you and them as well? Like I feel like that is for like DMs. Good DMing, you want to talk to your players about their character, right? Because you kind of build your story and world around them. So how does that work in the professional level?
Yeah, so I'll usually, for Dragonlance, it has a particular setting. It's in a particular world. Whenever people are like, what can I choose from? I usually just say like, Wizards approved classes, don't go scrolling through homebrewed Reddit and pick like the samurai bunny that has a bunch of new abilities that aren't official abilities. For home games, do like do what you want, but
no Usagi Yojimbo, guys.
I want to make that character
so bad
with my own Herangong, but yeah, so you find ways to reel it in, but for the most part, I just give them like, here's a setting, here's the list of things you can choose from, but at the end of the day, pick what is going to be the most fun for you to play. It's the first thing I always say to players that I'm just sort of learning to play with or haven't played before. Whatever's the most fun for them to play, that's what I'm most interested in. And if like, if they're playing in like an Icewind Dale and they want to play a demon or whatever and say like it's a tiefling, but it's a demon, it's like the mechanics of it are still within what works. But if they wanted to say like, I'm a demon from Avernus, I'll be a tiefling, but I'm a demon, I'm like, sick, you're a demon, works, sounds good,
we can do it,
as long as the context of the character still makes sense and works within the game.
Everyone's got to be
I don't
flexible.
care what you call yourself. I
always call, like they talk about yes and with the improv. We always, my neighbor lives across the street. We do the Humper game, and I'm a teacher, but I also run the D&D club. I've taught like all the kids in the community now and the D&D. And the thing is, I talk to them about yes and. I also talk about yes but. I think yes but is an important rule. Yes, but this is this or this, because I think consequences are important in D&D too, right? For like the falling out, right? And some of your best consequences come from how bad something happens or the mistakes you make or the awesome rolls. So how do you what's up for early DMs? How do you let the players know early, or what's your check where they're like, oh, I can get away with this much, but this is where they draw the line? Like, what kind of things do you do to let everybody know what's happening?
Well, you always want to have, especially if you're a new DM and you're getting players involved in a game, you always want to have those session zero talks of just like, here's the kind of story, the themes I'm thinking, here's the kind of game I want to play. If you want like wild anything goes, or if you're like, you can do what you want, but like we're gonna stick within a certain thing. If you die, you will die. I won't like, if you screw up and you die on death saves, your character's dead and we move on. There won't be a lot of but again, always go back to what is going to be the most fun for your players at that table. Maybe you'll have the discussion or like, kill me, I don't care. All my players always want me to kill them. They're always like, kill me, do it, do it.
I was trying to find a video of yours that I loved because like it made me think about like, maybe I don't want to be resurrected. It was the one you did about the contract with demons, about I don't want to be resurrected, I want to make a contract, like other consequences. I couldn't find it. I went through your feed. Where is this one? And then my kids needed me or something, and then ADD took over. But the point, that video really always made me think about it, because like, do you want the characters to try to bring you back? That's something like, but if it's like you die session one and they don't know you that well, are we re-rolling a new character? Are you going to make a pact? Or are you okay with your death? Because sometimes a character, it's good. Sometimes I found like, oh, my character, if they come back, it makes their death kind of pointless. Like it's a good story. Like they can let rest, this character's a hero.
Yeah, so I would, if you're in a game, especially early on, because that can happen. I don't know if anyone here has ever played Horde the Dragon Queen. If you do that as is, your characters can die real quickly. They throw a freaking dragon at you like the first session and tons of enemies. So you just talk to that player. Like, obviously, I have session zeros. Are you guys comfortable if you guys die or not? And people are like, yeah, do it. But even when players say that and it happens, you see that look on their face and they could be kind of sad about it. So you always want to talk to them after the session's done. Like, hey, man, that sucks. That happened. How do you want this to be resolved? Do you want this to be the end? Do you want to roll a new character? Do you want to have me create a way where they could possibly try to get you back and you come back in as a different like PC? Like the best backup side story you can always do for early deaths or deaths in general is, does the party go into Avernus and get their soul back? Classic. It's always fun to play. And then it gives you a lot of content to work towards. Like, how do they get into Avernus? Who do they got to meet to get into that realm? Who are the people in that realm when they go in? Where is their soul housed in Avernus? Which layer is it in? The arcs and the stories that can go. And like, if they get through all the challenges and they get that person's soul back, are they the same person they were before they perished? Do they have scars from that journey? So a lot of cool content come back, or like you said, do you want to make a demon or a pact with a devil and a great old one that like you're not dead, but there's a favor that they're going to call upon, and it could be not in your best interest when it most matters. And that develops drama, that develops those stories. So like you said, sometimes the best memories are when players fail or stuff doesn't work out rather than succeeding. But again, it always goes back to whatever's the most fun for your players at the table. Make sure that goes down. I got a lot of grief recently for a post that I've since taken down, and it was the first time I think I've ever gotten heat on D&D TikTok, and it was about the conjure animals bit with druids. The classic, once you get to a high level of druids, you can cast conjure animals at like 5th level or 9th level or something, and you can, with the higher level of the spell, you can cast just a bunch of random animals that and it's on the spell doesn't say it needs to be on the ground, so people usually like point at like 60 feet in the air and conjure their animals and let them fall on the enemy, doing crazy like fall damage.
Conjure a whale, conjure an elephant.
Yeah, right? And it's always been a way to, it's kind of a broken mechanic that like technically works. But I read somewhere on the internet that it was like in some thread, I don't remember where, but someone was like, well, the spell says they're fey spirits that takes the form of an animal. So if they're spirits, do they weigh anything? Because they're like ghosts. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting perspective on that. I've never thought about that. Most 99.9% of people say that's stupid. That doesn't work that way, because players love that tactic so much. Like it takes the form, which means everything. The spell doesn't say it's the weight of it, but it's, that's just how it is. So anyway, I was just at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm like, this will be a funny video skit to do. So I made a video inferring like the player tries to, cast like a bunch of animals on the BBG. And then I was DM being like, I know they're face spirits and they're weightless. Like, ooh, you're in trouble. D&D TikTok did not like that cake. And they were like, you're dumb. Quit doing your job. That is the most stupidest take I've ever heard in my life.
One of those days you don't read the comments, right?
And you should quit your job now, you stupid man. And I was like, oh my God. So I turned off comments because I just don't like harboring a negative environment.
Yeah. Who does?
But it comes,
like,
I think,
needs to chill out.
Yeah, but anytime a DM or a creator or anyone makes a hot take on a mechanics ruling or how a spell could work, that's not the norm. People always look at it from the perspective of like, they imagine the scenario of like you're purposefully imagining someone would try to do that in a game, and then you just on the fly being like, oh, they're weightless, it doesn't work. So anyway, and that's like kind of toxic DMing without talking to them or saying like, this is how I usually run this spell. How do you feel about that? But I just want to say this right here and now. Anytime you see a DM or a creator make just a wild perspective on how a mechanic works or a spell works, that's not the norm. I just wanted to say that no one is ever doing that to trap people, or like they're saying that and then they just like we'll do that on the fly in a game. Most of the time it's just like a fun perspective or fun like, ooh, it wouldn't be sweet if this worked this way. But again, the rule being, if a rule or anything that happens in a game is not fun for that player, no one's going to do it. No one's going to enact it. Or if like, even if that scenario were to happen and on the fly, you're like, I rule that this works this way. And they're like, what the hell? That's never happened in D&D before. That seems out of nowhere. I don't like that. I'd be like, okay, never mind. I thought that'd be fun, but if it's not fun for you, never mind. So once again,
sometimes you gotta take backseas, right?
Yeah,
but
player
also,
first experience.
It's okay to try new things, because this is the other thing. Ultimately, it's the DM's call, right? And everyone at the table can be cool with it. Now, you talk about the controversy there. I know you've stirred up controversy before.
Oh, did I?
And it's your Ranger hate. I know you are a day one Ranger hater. It's the only thing that I've never actually really got wrestled. I play a Ranger. That was the first character I ever played. I'm a Ranger lover. But I felt I love the videos. Like, why not just be a druid? And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's weird, though, too, when people get so, like, their jimmies wrestled about having an opinion or being funny or so. It's not for reals, guys. You can play it however you want, how he wants to play,
I know, but I do have sympathy for that situation, because there are DMs, like we talked about, who see the game as a DM first experience.
Right.
And if the players come up with a fun mechanic or a tricksy combo that technically makes sense within the rules and it screws up their plans or it kills their big bad monster in a round, sometimes they'll just be like, yeah, there's anti-magic on the floor this whole time and it only worked now. So it doesn't work. And in that instance, that sucks because you're then just punishing your players for kind of besting you and figuring out a way that they outsmarted you. And in that instance, that sucks. And I think in that scenario, people saw that ruling as that's what was happening.
What it tells me, they need to watch more anime if they're stuck there. Oh, it was a shadow clone this whole time, right?
Shadow
It was just right. We had that where I had a player turn on someone. I'm like, oh, I thought he was going to get to escape, and then they hit him, and he's like, doesn't this do more damage? I was like, nope. And I just was like, it's not him. Like it's a projectile of him. He's very strong. And they are like, oh, that makes sense, right? But it's also you got to be. I think some people are really good at adjusting and some people are really like rule followers, right, where it's like, no, this is how it's going to be. It's interesting too because I'll go on certain parts of Twitter on D&D or TikTok and I'll see like there's like a really old guard of this game is crunchy and this is how, and you guys are ruining it with your beautiful storytelling. And I think it can be a balance of both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But why do you hate Rangers? I want to get to that. Let's go back to they're so cool. What do you
mostly
are you just a druid guy?
Mostly it's just for the memes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just make content just to get a laugh.
For sure.
But out of I do feel that every class, there's one corner of the internet that will say this class sucks. Doesn't matter what it is. Another side will say this is
unless it's a paladin.
Ever. Yeah, exactly. But I think there are some cool Ranger subclasses, but at the end of the day, it's the player that makes that character awesome, no matter what class it is. But comparatively, the Rangers have gotten their short end of the stick.
Beastmaster sucked for a long time.
And everyone loves Gloomstalker. There was the what was it called?
Drake Warden's really
the Drake Warden Ranger. Yeah, from the Dragon book. That was really cool. But as far as the scope of things you could do with a class, its abilities, awesome stuff.
When my pet couldn't go on its own, when I can't be like, can I just sick it and get another turn? No, you have to use your bonus action. I was like, what?
Exactly. So as far as mechanics of things you could do, comparatively, it just doesn't seem to come up. It doesn't compare to what other classes can do in power ratings. Like Druid, vastly superior. Fighter, vastly superior. Gloomstalker and Beastmaster, they've changed Beastmaster a little bit, but there's so many cool homebrewed Ranger classes that people have made that have just made that class way more badass. And actually, speaking of Pathfinder, the Ranger in Pathfinder, unmatched. It is so much cooler than Fighter. It's so much cooler than most martial classes. The abilities that they've given the Ranger in Pathfinder just makes it so OP. But yeah, I just felt like for a while there, it was just not coming up to snuff. But also, it's just a fun joke, and you just want to make people laugh. I don't really care either way.
No, I know. I figured it was a joke. It's always good. It's like razzing your buddies, right? Sometimes they just got to take it. And obviously sometimes some characters or classes are the flavor of the month too, because of the subclass or this or that. And I think you can make a class. It's how the player plays it, right? And how they develop it. Multi-classing makes things better too, for sure. And actually, that's kind of funny because you're talking about the Ranger Pathfinder to me seems like what why can't I think of his name in Lord of the Rings? Viggo Mortensen,
Strider. Strider, Aragorn.
Aragorn, thank you. Yes, Aragorn is a Pathfinder Ranger to me. And I've had this talk with Dan Munoz. What do you think Gandalf is as a D&D class? Because I don't think he's a wizard. Right? Wouldn't you say he's multi-classed?
Pretty much. He's got a lot of magical abilities, but he's also great with a sword.
He's got to have some paladin, and he's kind of celestial, right?
Yeah. I'd say the way that wizards are kind of portrayed in D&D for the most part are more of they study texts and books, and They go to
Right.
schools and stuff, and more of this, I would say, maybe more on like the sorcerer
yeah,
idea, because their power comes from like
a deity.
the heavens basically, and they're all part
Yeah.
of this otherworldly heavenly beings. So more like celestial sorcerer paladin
He's
ish
got
going in there.
brandishing smite on the
Yeah.
tree. Like you see it. I definitely that's a fun internet argument to go on if you want to stir the pot.
Oh, I've
On
stirred the pot
TikTok.
many times just for the engagement. Because
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, unfortunately, like
you
even
have to, right?
creators will talk around the table to like they'll just say things just to get people talking in the comments, because it like debate makes engagement go up, makes the views go up, makes the posts go up.
Mhm.
Like I remember in my early days, I literally posted a picture of the Avengers, and I was like, "Oh, like here are what I think the Avengers class would be in D&D," and I purposely named them all wrong, just so
Yes.
the comments would be like, "That's not Rogue, he's an artificer." I'm like, I know.
I
Thank
know.
you for the
Duh.
engagement.
It's called
Um,
sarcasm. No,
oh yeah,
I was about to do that. I have a video for our shorts channel on YouTube because there's a song, the You're My Boo thing. It's kind of trending right now, but it's like games you can play with your boo thing, and it's just games that progressively make like you're fighting each other the whole time. So it's game like you would not actually play with your significant other. It ends with like Mortal Kombat, but which you could actually play. But uh it's interesting because do you have to think about that more now too, or how? So with all the games you do professionally, your home, how many home games are you doing?
well, right now I was doing my Pathfinder game
Yeah, that's it.
to prep for the studio game, but other than that, yeah, no, I don't have time. There's like with
Yeah,
the studio games, they're like a 2 month minimum process just to
right,
like plan, get cast, let all the departments know what you're doing, build the story, get everything together. Um, you only have time really for one game, and then that paired with doing events, like it's a lot mentally. um I don't like doing like 4 or 5 games at once. I don't have the
right.
brain power. So right now it's just that I want to get another, one of my personal like home long form home games going, because my Twitch channel right now, Game Raider Girl Ivy,
Yeah, she's been doing a lot of the games on there. I've been watching her.
yeah,
She does a
they've been
great
kind of
job.
taking the mantle, so the Twitch channel doesn't just go away because I'm so busy with Questline. That's kind of where my focus is for campaign content, and they're only like 4 sessions a game that we do. So I hope to get back to doing my own thing soon. Lord knows I've got enough minis and fun toys from doing content and working with all these awesome companies
Yeah,
that maybe we could do something really cool at some point. But it's kind of on the back burner right now. But I hope to get back to it at some point.
yeah. I was gonna say like when your passion becomes your profession, it really the lines become really not
Yeah.
sure. Like
I'm actually playing in Jordy, who I mentioned earlier. He's actually
yeah,
running a game for me and our friends from Call of Netherdeep. So I'm a player in that. So it's
that's
kind of nice
nice.
not to have to DM. I just get to enjoy, make a character. It's a fairy bard, College of Spirits named Cordy,
Okay.
um, and having a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I would love to get another long form campaign going back on the channel. Wild Beyond the Witchlight was the last one I DM'd. That went on for a little bit. That was with
Hmm.
Quincy's Tavern, Jennings Brower, Shane Wally, Jackie Elena Chan, Shays Aiden. But then when everything started ramping up with events in the studio, I just didn't have time. But we're
Right.
hoping we got to like literally the last arc of the book where they go to like the
Oh,
Feywild Castle and have the final
yeah.
showdown, and we just haven't gone back to it. But we are still in talks and hope to get back to that one
Get
day
that?
for
Yeah,
sure.
that would be like a fun like let's wrap the bow on it. Like we're on the left. It's like when you're at a video game that you've enjoyed so much, and you're like, I just have to fight the final boss, and then you don't touch it for 5 months.
Yeah,
Like, all
kind
right,
of. So
yeah,
I don't know. We're uh let's just say we're talking to some folks about maybe giving it a studio shine for that last
yeah,
arc, but
that'd be
TBD on
cool.
that.
Yeah. Well, that's I again, all this success has been amazing to see. And again, like the stirring the pot, we talked about that. That was kind of my last thing with you because of the Twitter engagement too. You've done it also on Twitter as well with this last one I want to pull up. The great engagement about your unpopular
Oh
D.
God, I did not expect that to go so viral as it did.
Yeah.
I was just making memes because I started off making memes on my Instagram. That was like the first kind of
Right.
content I was making. And I've since moved on doing video stuff, but I was like, I haven't made memes in a while. I'm just gonna post this here, and that comment thread is dangerous.
Yes, it is. And I liked it. I was there just taking it in. And I think though, like it goes back to one person's treasure is another person's like trash, or vice
Yeah.
versa. Or one person's trash is another person's treasure. That's the same. And you keep with the engagement stuff too. Do you, when you stir the pot, and your players, are people expecting you to? Because I remember, like you talked about, you made a lot of memes. You used to do a lot of tips and tricks. Do you ever think you'll go back to doing that kind of stuff? Because like I talked about the devil contract you did. You did a really good one. I have this one I wanted to pull up too. The one you did about travel and making traveling more interesting.
Oh,
and actually, yeah. Devil Dice, your recommendation in Devil Dice, I use that in my big homebrew campaign, and that's like one of the main games they all play.
Oh, great.
Because I was like, they're going to a casino. I need something, and your video popped up, and I was like, yes.
I mean,
perfect.
I definitely want to get back to doing that kind of content, but again, it's just like I obviously used to have a lot of time available to just make my own content, and more time to like research videos, find cool ideas for things. But lately, it's just been hard. Like even for my own content, like you said, you've been following for a long time. You've noticed that like the output is kind of slowed down a little bit just because I'm now doing these studio games where I get locked into an office and I'm working on this thing for like months, and it's hard to keep up your own content as well as all these other big opportunities. So
it's paying the bills now. It's a different game a little bit, right? Like you want to give everything, because the studio performances are so epic and over, like not over the top, but just they have so much, you can't. I figured it's interesting to see, because right now you're on a contract versus being like more independent, right? If I don't know, it's probably hard to go back, right, at this point, because like Critical Role kind of has the outline of where people want to be in D&D storytelling, where you have a show and go in there, and I'm sure with your shorts, but do you guys ever think at Questline you'll do more than like a 4 series? You'll do like a long
well, they're like, again, like early developments, but their brand started with this really good show on YouTube called Ready to Roll, that they had on their YouTube, and it was like their flagship show, and they did some incredible stuff there. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But they're gearing up to do a sequel long form campaign at their studio that I might be a player on. Well, TBD on that.
Clip it. No, go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, no. So that's gonna be really exciting if that gets going soon. But until then, like there's just so many ways you can go. Like like I said, I'm prepping up to do my 3rd game with them in October, but they have plans to do some of their own amazing original content, and I'm there to be supportive, to help make their like all of the reels and TikTok content on their channels. I facilitate for them as well. So also like making my own stuff, I also want to make sure that I'm supporting their works and we're all collaborating together, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about helping each other make these amazing stories. And their studio is also expanding, and they're starting to take on clients, and they want to make content for other businesses and other people as well. So it's literally a time and energy thing. I can only do so much at a time. Getting the opportunity to make these studio games is like a once in a lifetime thing. Maybe after the 3rd one, I might, take a bit of a step back and just focus on helping them with their stuff, whether that's me as a player or a producer, to help make their shows super great. And then allow me more time to make more original content again and get that going. But yeah, it's sometimes hard to pick a lane. You just get so many things. You get so many opportunities at this point. For myself, it's just like, you just want to keep the ball rolling, and you're just like, you're just not saying no, and
you got to try a little bit of everything to see what you like too, right? Or what you're truly like. I really enjoy doing this in this space, right? Kind of that type of thing, I feel like. Or just any type of, when you try a new thing, especially with
but the tips and trick thing, like I have on my board here, I'm always trying to go back to that, but it's like the time to like research that, find cool stuff, make videos about it. I recently did a post, I think it was on Twitter or Threads, where I was like, tell me your craziest like spell attack combos, and I'll make videos of it. So I have those out. So I'm gonna start making videos of like, I asked my audience, here's the top, here's a few that I thought really cool, and like I'll explain those. So look forward to seeing that content soon, of just like fun attack combos you could do with certain classes and things.
Haste with everything. No, that ruined it for my table. Well, actually, too, they go, and I like that. So with that tweet, that I have to ask, what is your most unpopular D&D opinion that you stand by?
Conjure animals or face spirits and are weightless, so you can't effing do it.
I agree.
Thank you. Like, no, but man, unpopular D&D opinion. Man, again, I've not been known to be too controversial a lot.
Same. I feel like if you're a player's DM, which you are, it's really hard to be controversial. I feel like it's when you have a hard stance.
Silvery Barbs.
Banning
Hate that spell. Hate that spell. As a player too, I use it, and it's great when you're a player. But man, when you've got multiple spell users who all take it, because why the F would you not want to take an ability that makes you re-roll the DM's rolls? I just think it's a bit overpowered. I think that there's got to be a bit of a power dynamic just for the story to feel a bit more threatening. And then again, like as a DM, you can always adjust. Like that's the thing. Again, I think player first medium. If everyone's going to choose Silvery Barbs and they're all spellcasters, sweet. These encounters are going to be hard. You are not going to get off scot-free. Like, yeah, you can make me re-roll a ton, but like, all right, well, like the encounters got to be harder, because the one thing that I don't like as a DM when doing these games is I don't want to feel like my actions or my stories don't have much agency.
Right.
Like and again, it's a balance. Like, again, I'll always stick by it's a player first medium. You always want the players to have a great time, but you also got to make the game challenging. Otherwise, you're just a DM that just lets players do whatever they want. And then as a DM, like, your baddies never seem tough. Your stories don't seem challenging. And they're just like 100th level OP players running through everything.
Yeah.
And,
legendary reactions become more relevant. Your players also have to understand, like, okay, you guys are womping through. It's a balance of, I'm going to give you some things you can womp, right? Like, you can definitely just cut through them. But I need to make some baddies that are on level with you guys. Because if I give you homebrew weapons and I make you strong, it's like it's balancing the game a bit. I know you're doing a game with AI. And this was my unpopular opinion. I am for making monsters or the fly on AI, because my friend in our Discord was like, hey, I made Ganon from Zelda as a enemy in D&D on AI. I was like, let me see the character sheet. And it was really good. It was like too scary. I was like, this is actually really
good. And AI can be a helpful tool to like maybe spark some ideas and stuff, but the AI use in creative medium right now is very controversial.
It's very scary, especially with the people's faces, right? And what's going on
and
there.
The writer's strike and the actor's strike. It's a big topic of controversy. So our game at Gen Con was originally going to be running a D&D one-shot that we were going to take suggestions from the audience, run it through Chat GPT, and just play it and just see what happened. But with everything happening, we sent an email to all the people that paid a ticket to say, hey, in solidarity with the strike, we are no longer going to have a Chat GPT component. So it's still called Arcane AI because the baddie is going to be an AI that the party will have to fight and defeat, because fuck them.
Well, no, tomorrow we're having on Parker Simmons. He's a voice actor and animator, and he he's won an Emmy for his voice acting. We're talking about the SAG-AFTRA stuff. And I think it's an important thing right now for creators too, because especially what's going on in the D&D space about being online. And if studios want to replace you with robots, go ahead, because then no one's going to work with you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be a helpful tool to spark ideas.
That's my unpopular opinion right now. Is it's really good for making monsters. That's where I walk like the line. I'm like not making stories, but yeah, but good for you guys for being in stand with them, because it's not good for art, right?
Yeah, it can be very problematic. And at the time we were like, I had some players being like, are we gonna do this? And I was like, but it was early on. I was like, this might blow over. Let's just see. And it's not blowing over anytime soon. So no,
more like gasoline got poured on it.
Yeah,
and you find out more and more. But I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So where can people find more of you?
Oh, well, you can follow me on all socials at Dicecream Sandwich. It's Dicecream Sammy on Twitter because I didn't have enough characters. But you can also
now X, whatever we're calling it now.
Oh God, I don't know. Not getting into that dumpster fire. But but yeah, Dicecream Sandwich on all socials. You can follow Questline D&D, Questline RPG on Twitter, on TikTok and Instagram as well. Follow their Twitch, their YouTube. A lot of the studio content that I'm creating right now is on their YouTube channel. And Dragonlance Shadow of War, the first studio game, got selected for a WebFest nomination at the Minnesota WebFest. So that's really cool. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled to all of our socials, because the second studio game, Pathfinder Bloodlords, is coming out very, very soon. And the trailer will have the release date of the first session. And that we got to fly in Tank Tolman and Shays Aiden to be a part of it.
Brad.
Costumes for this game are just some of the best makeup and costumes that you'll ever see in an actual play. We're so proud of the work we did. It was it was a long process from concept to learning a whole new system to getting it down. But we had a blast playing it, and everyone's going to really enjoy it, I think. So,
no, that's awesome. And if you guys need to find it in the description below, wherever you're watching and listening, there will be links to
and Gen Con.
And Gen Con.
Come
next weekend.
See our shows at Gen Con next weekend. Yeah, that's what I'm prepping this week for. There's so much content at Gen Con this year. I guess people aren't afraid of the pandemic anymore. And this is the year that everyone decided to come.
Everything's normal again. We can
you know, our group of D&D content creators are still making an appearance. It's the third year in a row going, which we're super stoked on. We've got games Friday and Saturday at 11 a.m. Friday's game is a Pathfinder one-shot. D&D creators learn Pathfinder. Also Set and Geb. It's going to be on Dead and Fun. And then Saturday, we've got our group of creators that we brought last year. We're continuing the story from last year's game, if anyone there attended it. So it's going to be a fun time, and come check us out.
Well, thank you again. And if you guys like what you're hearing, you can like, subscribe, follow us, click any of the descriptions below. We're going to be back this week with more interviews on Underpowered and doing some video game talks and Pokemon pack openings on Thursday on the Pokemon Hour. Hopefully we get some big hits on that. Kevin, I want to thank you again. And for anybody that watched, take care, have a good night, and enjoy your game.